Since assuming office, the APC-led administration under President Tinubu has rolled out sweeping reforms across multiple sectors, with the bulk of these efforts focused on the economy. Among the headline initiatives, fuel subsidy removal, the crude for Naira deal, the controversial tax reforms bill, the Electricity Act Amendment of 2024, ongoing talks around a new minimum wage, and attempts to enforce financial autonomy for local governments.
We had a disagreement or quarrel and everything when it was local government's autonomy. No.
But not all have landed well with Nigerians. The removal of fuel subsidy and the electricity tariff hike, though held by the government as necessary for economic recovery, have triggered widespread hardship, prompting public pushback and renewed calls for policy review.
So it has been counterproductive. It is hurting the economy. And as a leader, when the policy you are implementing, when it's hurting your people and your nation and your administration, you reverse them.
But I think efforts should have been made to first galvanize the refineries, make them to work, and of course also allow Dangote to come on stream.
In 2024, the presidency announced that savings from the fuel subsidy removal reached $7.5 billion, translating to over 11 trillion naira annually. But critics continue to ask, where is the money and how is it being spent?
The savings from the fuel subsidy goes to federation account. It means that since June 2023, the money that goes to federation account has increased. So what that means is federal government, state government, and local government, they now have more resources. Now, state government, before now, most of them were owing salaries of their workers and pensioners.
Beyond subsidy, the Tinubu administration also championed financial reforms aimed at strengthening local governance, notably the enforcement of local government financial autonomy. The Supreme Court's landmark ruling in July 2024 affirmed the autonomy of LGs, but many states have yet to comply, choking the functionality of grassroots institutions.
They've actually consider local government allocations as their own. They don't even give it to the local governments. They don't even allow local government access to it. When the money arrives, they just call the local government chairman, whom they eventually appoint anyway, and say, look, hey, okay, I'm doing this, I'll give you this for payment of salaries and the rest.
While critics accuse the federal government of slow or selective implementation, the presidency insists many of the projects are still in motion and will yield long-term gains.
President Tinubu will continue to work to improve the quality of life of Nigerians. Continue to work every day to improve our infrastructure, to improve on security, to improve on healthcare service delivery.
As Nigeria inches closer to another election cycle, observers say the Tinubu administration must reassess the fallout of the reforms, addressing public pain points and restoring confidence in governance.
So the first subsidy was cushioning a lot of things for the poor people. First subsidy is, in fact, is almost, because there's no light, there's no electricity in the country. So first subsidy is the only live wire that the citizens were enjoying. So you take it away and you are subsidizing politicians, governors, senators, House of Rep members. It's better to, when you subsidize the citizens, you boost businesses.
It needs to double down on issues around insecurity, economic development, particularly, ensuring that there is more job opportunities and more people are lifted out of poverty. Because without all of that, there will be no improvement in the standard of living of Nigerians.
But beyond rhetoric, the Tinubu administration has a lot of work to do to deliver on its campaign promises ahead of the next election cycle, when Nigerians will decide for tenure extension, or otherwise. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right. Aptly put there, obviously, different perspectives from different sides of the political divide. You can see some people pointing out to the positives, people pointing out to whatever is still a work in progress. But let's double down on what all of these conversations actually mean by once again spotlighting the president's nationwide public statement regarding the second year in office, the performance so far, the journey so far. Join us to help make sense of some of these developments. We have with us the one and only Emmanuel Osemeka joining the conversation to add value to what Nigerians need to understand about the best way to measure the performance or otherwise of the Tinubu administration. Mr. Osemeka, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Right. It's been 2 years of the Renewed Hope agenda. They've been reeling out some of the figures, but we didn't get a nationwide broadcast as many Nigerians thought would be customary. But the president did release a statement highlighting the journey so far. What did you make of what the president had to say about his stewardship of the country over the past 2 years?
Unfortunately, I don't have the speech because one, I actually anticipated that there was going to be a speech, just like we would normally have on May 29.
You mean a broadcast?
Presidential broadcast of May 29. One, I don't even have power in my house. That's one. Then two, fortunately for the president, I want to use that advisedly, he has chosen June 12th for his own Democracy Day. That's still...
I mean, was it his choice? I mean, that was the arrangement since the Buhari administration made that decision.
Well, it was long coming from him, because he's been an advocate of June 12th being the Democracy Day, the correct Democracy Day for Nigeria, as against what we've had from 1999. In 1998, before the Abdullahi Abubakar's regime handed over or conducted the election and handed over to the democratically elected president as at 1999, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was sworn in on May 29, and of course Abdullahi Abubakar's government ended on May 29, 1999. That had been the Democracy Day for Nigeria, because that was the day the military handed over to a democratically elected government after so many years. Some say 33 years, some say it's been more than that. But that's when we returned to this current democratic practice that we have today. And it's been a successive administration from Obasanjo to Yaradua to Goodluck Jonathan, then to, of course, Muhammadu Buhari, who in his second term chose to go back to the supposed wrongs that were done in the 1993 conundrum, which saw late Chief M.K. Abiola, the acclaimed winner of the 1993 general election, though he was not declared at the time, but President Buhari posthumously declared him the winner. How legal that is, we don't know yet, because by Nigerian law, even at the time, you should have a returning officer who makes those declarations, or have a court make those declarations. The results were not completely put out. So, but for the purpose of peace and for purpose of moving forward, many Nigerians felt, okay, fine, we could say that. But the question now is, okay, so if he's posthumously president, what are the things that ought to have gone to him? We're yet to see that. We didn't know whether it was a political statement by the APC government to garner support where they probably didn't get the level of support they wanted. Then, of course, consistently, May 29 have been sidesteps, like today, to June 12 on a regular basis from the day President Muhammadu Buhari made those declarations. And, of course, President Tinubu continued in that stead. And don't forget, he's been a major proponent of, reforms in our electoral jurisprudence. He's one of the major leading voices in
through federalism, and he's been in government for 2 years, and we are yet to see that through federalism in practice under his watch.
Right.
And if you also take a look at a lot of the things he's done in the last 2 years, you would it's a function of what I would describe as a mixed bag. I'm yet to see the renewed hope. The renewed hope still remains a campaign item, in my view. There's been some effort, but where you have a government that operates largely in silos, you hardly.
What do you mean by in silos? In what sense?
So we have, to some people, we have 3 presidents. It's like nature. Nature? It's like history repeating itself. I recall in the years of President Goodluck Jonathan, some say, oh, Nigeria has 5 presidents. One of them was President Goodluck Jonathan. The next one was Alice Ndezani Madueke. The second was Mama Peace. The third one was Alice Madueke. And they named quite a number of other people. These were powerful people in that government. And today people are saying, oh, we have like 3 presidents. We have one who is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The second president is Nyesom Wike.
I mean, you're talking about powerful figures. I can understand powerful figures. But is there any doubt that there's one person in charge, and that person is Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
The reality is that in every government, there must be powerful people. There must be people, what many would describe as members of the kitchen cabinet, because you would have people who make decisions on behalf of the president. You have people who interpret what the president says or his body language. So by so saying, you realize that there are people who more or less have an overarching, influence on the president. Sometimes without the president speaking, they even go ahead to say the president has said. So, and one of the third person they mentioned is his chief of staff, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and of course there's a fourth person, Nuhu Ribadu, So you have those very, very, very powerful people that you do not want to offend in any given administration. Under Goodluck Jonathan, you had the likes of Desiani and Alice Madueke, who was extremely powerful. Under President Muhammadu Buhari, you have Malami, who was also extremely powerful and all that. So in every successive government, you have very powerful people, and many people will allude to the fact that say, oh, because these people are so powerful that it appears that the president does not have check on these people, they are considered to be presidents.
Right. So let's take a look at some of those quotes then from the statement, just so we can reference what was said and of course get your reaction to it. Let's go back to the first one, Hauwa.
On economic reforms, he said the only alternative to the reforms our administration initiated was a fiscal crisis that would have bred a runaway inflation, external debt default, crippling fuel shortages, a plunge in naira, and an economy in a free fall. You said you didn't get a chance to go through the speech or have any inkling of what was going on in the speech. What would you say about him saying that?
Well, the reality is that with the supposed reforms, we also saw clearly that we had fiscal crisis. Already, we still have fiscal crisis. It's yet to be, abated. We still have runaway inflation. Inflation is still at an all-time high. It has not dropped. We have.
Well, it is dropping slightly, though.
It's dropping slightly. Okay, in numbers. What about in reality? I heard Senator Ojus Okalu a few days ago, where he was wearing, the campaign material for the re-election of President Buhari, Muhammad Buhari.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Right. You're still not caught up yet on the latest.
Now, and he made his statement quite succinct, and I'm sure if he goes back to listen to those statements he made, he'll probably regret saying it. But that was the truth. He said that the reforms and reform agenda, the Renew Hope agenda, yes, were very tough. They were very difficult, and those were difficult decisions that the president had to take. That yes, he agrees that it brought about some pain and hardship, that people are still poor, but that we could see clearly that at the micro level, that's at the top level, that they began to see some reprieve. But that we should give them another 3 years or 2 years or thereabout before we begin to see it cascade down to the macro level. And I cringed. I was like, okay, makes sense. So you agree that your reforms are not even trickling down to the people. But if you have a 4-year tenure and as you sit down to craft your reforms and you are not able to clearly, with a bird's eye view, see when your reforms is going to cascade to the people, do the people need to die completely before your so-called reform begins to affect them positively? Food inflation is not coming down. Core inflation is not coming down.
Well, according to him, rice prices and other staples are declining when it comes to, the prices of food in the market.
Declining from where they took it to. When the APC government, came into office, what was the price of a bag of rice in the market? What was the price of a mudu of corn in the market? What was the price of a bottle of palm oil in the market? What was the price of goat in the market? Today, what's the difference? It's not enough to balloon the inflation and destroy the economy. Then you begin to, catch your breath to say, I'm bringing it down. Bringing it down from where? Where you met it or where you took it to?
Yeah, but a lot of people will say all of that hinges, Mr. Osemeka, on the fact that we had an economy that was pretty much a bubble, fueled by the subsidy regime that we all agree needed to go. Therefore, the removal of fuel subsidy pretty much opened our eyes to the realities of what our economy is. That is a struggling economy, and now it has to go through a reset. And this reset is why the inflation is high. And according to the Tinubu administration, the GDP growth, as well as the trajectory of flotation of the naira, as well as all of the stabilization program that it is trying to roll out right now, is why these numbers are still high. However, that's the reality on ground that we have to deal with going forward, and that this administration is only making Nigerians see the reality of things, as opposed to what previous administrations have done to float the economy in such an unsustainable manner.
It's a question of your words against mine or your reality against my reality. So let's talk history a little bit. Let's talk history. So between 2010 and 2015, we had the issue of fuel subsidy. What was the budget for fuel subsidy between 2015 and 2010 and 2015? We had an average of 300 to 350 billion on the average. Sometimes it was about 280, sometimes they didn't even nail it off. Recall that in 2011, there was a need to take a look at the fuel subsidy regime where many people were jailed. People are still being jailed for those fuel subsidy scams and the rest of them. So we pressed a reset button at that time. And we had our reality check at that time. Fuel was increased to 112 or thereabout, and later rescinded back to 96 or 97, right? That was our reality check, and that was a reset button. Now, when President Buhari came on board, he had all the indices and all the data he needed to do the needful. What did he do? His government ballooned the fuel subsidy payment to 6 trillion per annum. From 6 trillion per annum to 6 trillion every 3 months. So we have to clearly, set the record straight. The fuel subsidy scam, if you want to use it properly, began to, move in the wrong direction under the APC administration.
I mean, you remember the scandal from 2012 and how that issue is still pending in the courts today.
2011.
2011. I think some sentences were being made.
Yes.
But that is still one of the biggest heist under the Tinubu, the PDP administration.
Under the PDP administration.
Before the Dasuki Gate even began.
Good, but can we give them some credit that they even came out to admit that something was wrong with the administration of the fuel subsidy regime? Now, and what was the cost of fuel subsidy in Nigeria at the time? And how did those scam or those fraudulent activities affect the economy to the point where we are today? The answer to that question is very clear to every eyes to see.
I mean, if you're doing a comparative analysis,
yes,
you're juxtaposing the PDP administration and the APC administration. A lot of people would say it's not fair, especially if the Tinubu administration is to be factored in 2 years down the line, right? That they're not on the same, on even playing field, because those administrations had fuel subsidy. So the indices are obviously going to look favorable because energy cost was much lower. However, the Tinubu administration started on day one without fuel subsidy. So they're not on an even placement. So it's not fair to even compare.
I disagree with you 1,000%. The Tinubu administration...
But do you think without fuel subsidy,
no,
the Jonathan administration or the Buhari administration could have fared better?
I disagree with you 100%. Let's get our facts right. According to the NNPC, Tinubu administration paid subsidy. Some of them, they called it under recovery. Recall when they told us about under recovery? Recall how many times they told us that they had to do some cushioning? Are you aware that equalization fund is also part of fuel subsidy? Let's be very factual, because the reality is that over the years, our government have been run in an opaque manner. So many of us don't have a lot of facts. Yes, Tinubu administration came on board without proper scrutiny, without proper engagement, without proper thinking, woke up and went on a political, aggrandizement and declared fuel subsidy gone, whereas they were still paying fuel subsidy. It took a while before they began to get their acts together. That singular statement alone sent Nigerian economy on a hickey hacker. That's the reality. The reality was that we had people who came into government without understanding what they were supposed to do. They were playing, either they were not sure they were elected, or they were not sure what they were supposed to do, or they didn't understand what they meant on ground. That is what it was. Yes, it's still in the realms of speculation. But the reality is that when they sit down and do a postmortem for themselves, they will realize that they messed up the economy the first 1 year of that administration. And they are still trying to, grapple with all the errors that they met, or the errors of the decisions that they took. Let's be clear. Fuel subsidy has been part of Nigerian system. Subsidy has been part of Nigerian system. In every economy, there are subsidies. The reality and the difference is, how do you manage those subsidies? The issue and the argument from successive government is, the subsidy does not get to the people. The subsidy is hijacked. Sir, it is your job to ensure that any fraudulent activities within the subsidy regime is arrested. And anyone found culpable should be able to answer for it.
Yeah, but the president, his body language and his words is for those who think subsidy is going to return to perish that thought. It's safe to say that there's no point crying over spilled milk. Subsidy is gone, and there's no way bringing it back makes economic sense. Or is that what you're suggesting, that halfway down the line, that the Tinubu administration, so all of a sudden, after all the sacrifices and the pains that Nigerians have gone through the past 2 years, you expect that a return to subsidy is realistic?
So maybe you do not even understand my point. President Tinubu made a statement and said, that if the decisions he took was not taken, that Nigeria would have gone into fiscal crisis. And I'm telling you that with that decision, we went into fiscal crisis. He also went further to say that if he didn't take those decisions, that would have gone into crazy inflation. Did we not go into crazy inflation? We did. All the things he enumerated there, we went through it and we're going through it. So I'm saying to you that it is not about him removing fuel subsidy. It is about mismanagement of the economy. That's where the problem is. That's why I went memory lane to let you know that in the past, we had subsidy. In the past, subsidy was supposedly removed, whether 100% or not 100%. Under Buhari, we removed subsidy twice. Under Jonathan, we removed subsidy twice. Under Yar'Adua, we removed subsidy once, maybe twice. Every government in Nigeria has removed subsidy. In fact, under President Muhammadu Buhari, we heard from Ibe Kachuku that what they were doing was cost recovery. That was the language they used. But they were paying subsidy. We know that, of a fact. They were paying subsidy, and for years under this APC administration, the NNPC was not able to return a kobo to the coffers of the government. Why? The issue was that, that they had what they call under recovery. We have to be factual with our statement. It's not about, we're not talking politics here. We're talking economy. Economy is 1 + 1 = 2. It's not about how sweet or how nice or how excellent my English is. The issue is the government came on board, mismanaged the already fragile economy, and took it to a different dimension. And for 2 years, they've been trying to catch it. But it's been a difficult task for them. The earlier they accept and begin to face the reality, the better. 2, if Nigeria was such in a dire strait, why did the administration go on a spending spree of luxury items for themselves? We said the economy was in a terrible strait, Nigerians need to tighten their belt. Why did the government wake up and began to approve 160 million naira per legislator to buy SUV, luxury XUV? The government went on a spending spree and spent 9.6 billion naira to renovate the presidential wing of the international airport. We can go on and on and on and check all the excesses and the expenditures. The PDP administration we talk about that had all the fraud and all the criminal activities had an average budget of 4.3 trillion at the twilight of that administration. President Muhammadu Buhari's average budget was 12 trillion. President Tinubu's average budget is 48 trillion. The difference is clear. Who is spending more? Who is giving us more value? I'm not speaking...
Are you saying 2 years down the line you can make a conclusive statement that the Tinubu administration has failed already in 2 years?
My statements are very clear, and I'll leave our viewers to make their conclusion.
I just want to be clear. I just want to be clear about what you're saying, because you're comparing an 8-year tenure to a 2-year tenure when you say Buhari versus Tinubu. You're comparing 6-year tenure when you say Goodluck versus Tinubu. And it's just 2 years in office. And we do know for a fact that whoever was going to come in 2023 is going to deal with a very bad situation, because we all know how bad the economy was.
Sir, let's be very factual. My analysis had gone memory lane all the way to Yar'Adua's administration, all the way to Obasanjo's administration. Yes, I centered a lot of my comparisons, at the twilight of Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Yes. And I'm comparing that to APC from 2015 all the way to date. I'm not separating them.
Yeah, but there are two different APC administrations.
It doesn't matter. They are both. It's apple versus orange. It's APC versus PDP. Those are the governments we've had in the country.
But the conversation we're having this morning is about the 2 years of the Tinubu administration.
I agree, but it's the same administration of Tinubu's administration that in less than 2 years gave the president a pass mark and endorsed him for second term in less than 2 years.
But then there was one thing that you mentioned earlier, that during the first year, they saw that they were messing up in a couple of things, and they did a postmortem of their performance, and they're trying to redirect and make better decisions. So do you think that that would go in their favor, or it is just going to continue as it is?
Well, yes, I made that statement, owing to the fact that we could see the direction they were going in their first year, and suddenly they made a detour. That detour showed clearly that they discovered that they were doing the wrong thing. And they are still on that detour in trying to catch up with the errors that they've made.
But then,
they have not opened it. They haven't even opened up to us to say, oh, we made a mistake here. What makes a good government is that you own up and say, we made mistake here. We are getting it right now.
Really?
Yes.
Governments say that they make mistakes on economic policies?
Sir.
I mean, look at the way Trump walked back the tariff situation. He didn't admit it was a mistake.
He doesn't need to admit that he made a mistake.
But
walking back.
But that's how government works.
Saying, when you make a statement and say, from tomorrow, XYZ is going to happen. And from that tomorrow, you realize that that thing is going to make a mess. And you say, oh, you know what? I'm taking that back. I'm going to do it differently, or I'm putting a pause on it. You don't even have to come out and tell us that it was a mistake.
But then you just said they got to a point of realization.
Yes.
And then they're now trying to correct.
They made a detour. They didn't stop. They made a detour.
Detour to another situation that is bad for Nigeria.
They made a detour from what was a terrible
bad.
Yes, to correct the errors they are making. You see, like someone clearly said to me, unless you're quite clever, you may not clearly understand what's going on. Sir, in the last 2 years, no borrowing, no serious business transaction has happened in the real sector. That's the reality. When your real sector is not functional, where do you expect the economic growth to come from, sir? Nigeria is largely 80 to 90% an informal economy. Where do you, sir, tend to borrow to be able to invest in manufacturing?
But then let's talk about the debts that
fantastic.
that has been celebrated and been talked about, that has been paid. But then at the end of the day, when you look at the intricacies of, the debt payment, there are a couple of stipulations underneath it whereby you would see Nigeria is still in debt to the IMF because there are some payments that they need to do up until 2029. And with that, we still have the president of Nigeria trying to borrow more money from external, contributors. What do you think about that?
One of the biggest economic mistake of the APC administration is their appetite for borrowing. President Muhammadu Buhari borrowed 64 trillion in 8 years. 67 trillion in 8 years. Nigeria from 1960 to 2015 did not borrow 20 trillion.
Yeah, but don't you think you need to backdrop that? You need to qualify what occasioned it. 2 recessions between 2015 and 2017. And then there was a pandemic.
Who caused the recession? Myself? Mismanagement of economy will cost you double negative growth. Mismanagement of economy. Sir, if you mismanage this organization, it will go aground.
But we know a country works differently. Especially a country like Nigeria.
A country does not work so differently from a business, because a country is like a corporation.
But a country is not a business.
A country is bigger than a business, right? Because a country can borrow limitlessly, as long as they have the resources to back up their borrowing. That's what is different from the company. But if you also look at a company with heavy assets, they are also able to borrow against their assets. So when countries borrow money, they borrow against their assets, resources, and the such like. It was until the NMPC, began to go through, so much scrutiny that we realized that we borrowed money against our oil production for the next 10 years or thereabout. That was irresponsible. So the question is, when we borrowed so much, 67 trillion under Buhari administration, I'm coming to Tinubu's administration, what did we use the money for? And yet we went into we experienced double recession. 2, you come to Tinubu's administration. Do you know how much this government have borrowed in 2 years? Do you know, sir?
Yeah, we actually have the figures, and we're going to roll some of it over there.
Please help me.
But against that backdrop,
yes.
I mean, the first one was that $800 million from the World Bank targeting the safety security net, where people are supposed to get some sort of conditional cash transfer. Understand that the World Bank has already given them 500 million of that $800 million. Then there's the subsequent loans we got from the World Bank again. I think we're going to show the graphic in just a moment. But the part of it, there you have it. July 13, 2023, $800 million from the World Bank, $500 million have been released already. The purpose is for the Social Security Net Program. Then $7.8 billion and 100 million euros, right, from the AFDB and then some other partners. All of that targeting infrastructure and sectoral projects in 2024. Still, just a couple of months after that, is the $2.25 billion from the World Bank, which is targeting economic reforms and revenue mobilization. Then there's the Afrexim whole bank deal. We don't know how much of that has been released yet, but it's aimed at currency stabilization and economic growth. In 2025, just a couple of days ago, $2.15 billion from the World Bank, AFDB, and some Japanese partners.
51.5.
Targeting 2025-2026 external borrowing plan for critical projects. And then there's the Sukuk bond and everything targeting settlement for pensioners. That those liabilities are something that the government has to, deal with. But it seems, from the outside looking in, you look at the purpose of the loans. I mean, put the figures aside. It does make sense, right? Injecting into capital projects, infrastructure development, safety net programs. It does make a whole lot of sense.
Yes, sir.
It? We need money.
Good.
That we don't have.
Good.
To develop Nigeria, don't we?
Okay.
That is a no-brainer.
Okay. So, but when you come to the reality, that's why I went memory lane to tell you how much the Buhari administration borrowed in 8 years. And yet we could not pinpoint clearly where these monies went to. 2, you now come to this administration from 2023 till date. I think there's another Sukuk bond that is not here. They took in 2023 and in sometime in 2024. It's not here. Because I am aware of some of those Sukuk bonds, that they do in the treasury. There are also some green bonds they've taken that is not also here. But the point is, when you take a look, these are all in dollars. Convert them to naira, you will be amazed. These are in trillions.
Absolutely.
These are in trillions.
I mean, if he gets the 24 that he's looking for now, they say it's our national debt, external debt, will be around 183 trillion.
Thank you, sir. When President Muhammad Buhari
left, still under the threshold of 60% debt to GDP ratio.
Excuse you, sir.
That is what the economists are saying.
Nigeria is not productive, sir. Nigeria has not been productive in the past 10 years.
What do you mean Nigeria has not been productive? The administration is saying over $50 billion in new FDI commitments have been made.
I'm coming, sir. Hold on, sir. Before the APC administration, what was our FDI on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly, biannual basis? And what do we have today? Without losing the trail of my thought on these borrowings, the reality on ground is that no new specialist hospital has been built in Nigeria or equipped by the federal government of Nigeria. We have from the records of the Ministry of Works and Housing, Ministry of Works, we have about 37 arterial roads that need serious rehabilitation. How many of them have this money gone to? These monies?
Well, as we said, we are at the halfway mark. And in his speech, he highlighted that the healthcare system are now going to be equipped with facilities and deploying skilled personnel to unserved areas. So maybe in his own right, there would be, a little bit of progress after that, which so far we haven't seen. But what's your take on that?
My analysis is very simple, and I hope you guys are able to pick it. This is halftime for the administration. And just 2 months or a month before halftime, the entire APC apparatus gave the president a pass mark that he has done what nobody else on the earth has ever done. So therefore, he's getting their pass mark.
Did they say on earth, or is that how you?
That is what that's what they said.
Right.
That he's the best thing that has ever happened to mankind in Nigeria. That's what the APC
I'm sure
said.
they didn't say it like that.
Unfortunately, you are not watching.
I watched. You're talking about the National Summit.
The statement from the APC, Progressive Governors Forum.
Yeah.
You are making me lose the trail of my thoughts. The fact remains that you do not begin campaign for a second term at the midterm. Yes, you begin subtle campaign by the progress you make as an administration, and your projects will speak for you, and your projects will campaign for you. The populace will say, yes, this government is doing very well. This government deserves a second term. But when you have a government or an administration that is so fixated on second term, when they've not even gotten to the halfway mark, then certainly something fundamentally is not very clear.
I'm afraid, yeah, just
so, to bring home my point here is, we've gone on borrowing spree without commensurate, foot on ground to show for what we've borrowed. We've made too many statements, in public without commensurate, clarity or reality on ground to show for it. We see the president ride on over 50 SUVs as his convoy. We've seen the president change the presidential jet to a brand new presidential jet. We've seen the president living luxuriously as if Nigeria is the richest country in the world, whereas we are one of the poorest countries in the world today.
According to
facts.
We're still a top 3 economy on the continent.
On the continent.
Our GDP
in the world? What about the world, sir?
But we'll have to contextualize the conversation.
We are 2,000 plus.
Yeah.
So let's be very factual, sir. We used to be the number 1 economy in the African continent. Where are we today again, sir? Remind me.
Top 3.
Top 3?
Yeah.
By GDP?
Yeah, by GDP.
We are top 3?
By size, we are number 1. I mean, these are just the facts.
Potentiality. Nigeria potential never ceases.
No, we have the largest
From 1960, we've been a potential country. Till date, we are still a potential country.
Right.
When people are running on rails, high-speed rails, we are still doing locomotive and we're celebrating it. Our airports cannot even take people domestically and we're celebrating.
Okay. For the APC folks listening to you right now who are supporters of the president, is there a silver lining argument that you can make of how this work in progress might just be something that could take us out of these doldrums that you've painted out?
Finally. I pity the APC whoever who will come in to defend the president, because the reality is that when you come to defend the indefensible, you actually sound very funny, because the reality is that when you sit and see the facts on ground, it is difficult to speak to it. I'm not saying the government is not making effort, but I'm saying the effort you claim you are making 2 years down the line, we're not seeing it.
Okay. All right.
You've spent so much with so little. So on what basis are you asking us to vote for you again? Or on what basis are you saying you are the best thing to have happened to Nigeria? The answer is no. You are not the best thing to happen to Nigeria. In fact, Nigerians may be having nightmare thinking about you.
Okay.
So it's a wake-up call to them to say, truly, in the last 2 years, have we really done well the way we've postulated that we have? It is important they take a look at it. Take a look at Abia State government. Have you heard anybody say, oh, Abia State governor, you will have free tickets for second term? But that man is working without anybody hearing anything. Go to Enugu State. Performers don't make noise. Their projects speak for themselves. Rather.
All right. The Tinubu administration would have said, we've reeled out all of these things, and I get the feeling that if I still regurgitate what they said, you're still going to end up saying the same thing. So we're going to have to anchor the conversation here for now. Mr. Emmanuel Osemeka, as always, spiritual conversation. Thank you so much for the analysis.
The pleasure is mine.
Stopping by this morning.
Yes,
thank you so much for your time.
God bless you.
All right.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more. We'll also get to hear from the APC's publicity director alongside another public commentator to help us spotlight some of these issues and understand what some of the facts are speaking to and how Nigerians are reacting to it. More on that in just a moment.